Welcome to the Fireside Chats. So we'll give. I'm going to give another minute just until we actually hit the top of the hour before we get started here. But hopefully we'll have everybody in by then. And failing that, we will be recording and we'll put it up on YouTube a little bit later. So that'll all be good. So yeah.
I guess I'll be social and turn my camera on.
Yeah, that's totally up to you. It depends on whether you want to do that or not. So, awesome. All right. One thing I will do though is I will ask as we're going through this thing to start off with here. I think I'll get folks to mute their mics, and what we'll do is we'll take questions via the chat as well as raised hands or things like that. I have a few that have been pre-submitted that I'm going to go through and sort of start dealing with things to kick off the conversation and whatnot. But as I say, I certainly I'm happy to invite people to talk, but just to keep it as to a manageable level here. As I say, if we can have questions submitted through the chat or raised a hand, I'll try and watch that, and then I can address the questions or call on you guys to actually come off of mute to do that. Would be perfect. So welcome everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ken. I am one of the data monkeys behind Master Your Data. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. It's awesome to see so many people rolling in here for a social chat. Just to give you a quick background on what I am planning to do today, there will not be any technical content that I'm going to be going through today. I'm not answering technical questions or anything like that. This is all very much a social component on just what's gone into the book, and why do we make the decisions we made, what inspiring things can we talk about and whatnot. So hopefully you'll find it a little bit more of just an interesting sort of component, I guess, to get to know me maybe a bit better or know what we're actually dealing with here and what goes into this stuff. So I'm going to start with some of the questions that came in through the survey along the way here, and we'll start with those, and then we'll take it the direction that we go. As I say, please feel free to use the chat. Any questions that come up that you want to explore, I mean, I'm happy to talk about it. But the very first question that I've got here came in from Nick Del Papa. I'm not shocked that you submitted a question, Nick, I got to say. So he says, I know you're fresh off completing the books. Do you have plans on a third edition? I'm like, dude, I just got the second one done. So let's put it this way. Miguel and I have actually talked about that, but there's a couple of different things there. I know Nick's question specifically is, is there any thought about going deeper into some of the off-ribbon techniques, UI and M-code techniques and things like that? So before I sort of dive into answering that, I wanted to actually tackle another question that I have in here as well, and that one was, hey, it took a long time to get this book actually done. What was the actual writing time at the end of the day in order to get this thing actually finished when it all came down to it? And if I go back and I actually take a look at this, I mean, I actually started physically writing this last year in about March, right when COVID hit. I took a stab at trying to get some of it done, and then we had to put it aside because business went horribly wrong with COVID and all the rest of it, and we had to try and get back to that. And then I got back to writing in January, and when I go back and I take a look at it, I mean, I don't have a time and billing system, so I don't really track it, but my conservative estimate is that this book, which ended up being 21 chapters, took about 1 40-hour week per chapter to write. Okay, so in all, this was about 21 weeks of full-time effort went into writing this book. So it took a long time, obviously. One of the big things around this whole component, of course, is that we're running a business in the grand scheme of things, and I love writing and I love sharing my knowledge, but we also have to make it financially worthwhile and whatnot. One doesn't write books to get rich, I'll tell you that right off the bat. So whenever we're looking at new material, these are the things that we're always trying to balance when we're actually looking at it. How long is the book going to last? And that's one of the reasons why it actually got delayed so many times, as well as what is the broader market appeal? This is a big thing that went into the decision of why the name is not called M is for Data Monkey anymore, because even though we love that title, nobody does a Google search when they're trying to work with Power Query for what is M is for Data Monkey, and that was the big challenge we had there. So So tying that sort of all back into Nick's question here, plans for third edition. I'm going to be honest. I hope not for a little while. The reality is, I mean, it took an awful lot to deal with to get this one done. And I went back looking through my blog post, and I found the first time that I apologized for not actually having it on the deadline date, and that post was from August 1st, 2018. I've been apologizing for over 3 years that the book hasn't actually made it to the shelves, that people are actually trying to get it. I know people pre-ordered it from Amazon, are still waiting for their copies. I mean, this is my physical copy right here. Like it's still printed off of my own printer. I don't even have my own yet. So, you know, when I'm sort of looking at that, I'm going, third edition, I'm hoping it's a couple years down the road, and I'm honestly really hoping that all it is a change to the user interface. As far as writing another book to go deeper into M-code techniques and off-ribbon stuff, maybe. The big question that I've got to sort of deal with on that one, though, is whether or not I think there's a broad enough market appeal to actually justify the time into it. And I mean, I say that after writing, I mean, my first book, which actually I have a copy over here. I have a few copies of this one over here, but this monstrosity, Ribbon X, I think I ended up getting paid probably about $1 an hour for what I put into that one. So it's one of those things that's kind of a tough justification. My guess, honestly, if you're looking for deeper M-code techniques, the place where you're going to see those is probably coming into our Power Query Academy in order to try and deal with those. We can actually do it in a lot smaller scope at a time and actually make it worthwhile. So hopefully that makes sense and is sort of clears that one up a little bit. Got another question here. How best do we learn this new skill, meaning Power Query, I guess? Honestly, it really depends on how you learn. I'm a book person. I like to read books. I'm not really necessarily someone who goes and learns by watching videos. I find in the current day and age, I get far too easily distracted when I'm watching a video versus a book I can actually pick up and scan through the pages and scan back and forth and whatnot. So for me, it's that route. There are people who learn hands-on. There are people who learn by listening. There's people who learn by watching. And so it really comes down to what the best way is of dealing with it. Or what your learning style is, rather. My typical advice is find a resource that you connect with, whether that's written, whether that's a video or whatnot. And then basically where you really learn is when you actually try and go and put it to use in the real world. And it's really helpful to have a forum to help and where you can actually ask people for, how do I adapt this kind of stuff. I know that is one of the things that we do have at Skillwave to support our learners is a forum which is curated and whatnot as well. And it's specifically for that reason. So, am I going to tell you that the book is the only way to do it? Absolutely not, because it really depends on you. Do I believe that the book is a good resource for it? I wouldn't have published it if I did, right? So that's sort of the route to go through that. Speaking of Skillwave, I just want to throw out a real quick note on this too. Today's chat is sponsored by Skillwave, and one of the things that I just wanted to throw a quick shout out is we've actually just launched a big 20% off campaign special on all of our courses for the next 10 days. If you have been looking at signing up for some awesome video training on Power BI, Power Query, Power Pivot, Excel, all of our courses in our catalog are 20% off until September 12th. So there is no better time to go and jump into those. This is the deepest discounts that we do all year. So check it out and have a look out there and see what's out there. All right. Oh yeah, my favorite questions that I get on these ones here. So here's another one related to sort of learning styles and whatnot. What's the advantage of reading a book like this against watching clear video tutorials presented on YouTube? Is there something in the book which is not available in millions of YouTube tutorials? I love trying to justify why you should buy my book. So here's the deal. I don't know whether or not every concept in the book is actually demonstrated on YouTube. And the reason I don't know that is because I didn't watch YouTube to go and generate these things. Everything that's in the book is written by Miguel and myself. There are a lot of YouTube videos I know out there that do emulate the things that we do because our book is one of the first that came out in the market on this stuff. I know that there are some techniques definitely that are on YouTube. There is one that I am aware of where a friend of mine who is a YouTube star sent me the method that we ended up using in the book. So for sure it's out there. I am absolutely certain that there are things in the book that are not on YouTube today. Whether they are tomorrow, no idea. I mean, that's the way that technology evolves, right? I mean, as somebody who's in the business of providing content to help teach people, one of the things I know is that I am every single day that I put this stuff out here is I'm teaching people how to go and take my job for teaching other people, and that's all good. Like, I understand that. So, will you see it on YouTube? Yeah, possibly. You'll see lots of stuff out there. The big difference, I think, here is that our material is curated into a learning journey that goes from start to finish. If you're trying to find your stuff on YouTube, you may find awesome stuff. The problem is, how do you find it? And that's the big sort of difference that we have in that. And again, that's the same for our video courses and whatever else. You can pick off individual pieces anywhere you want, and you may end up doing that all the time. But if you're looking for a curated journey from start to finish that actually takes you through the logical steps, a book like this, one of our courses, is a great place to go. All right. Let me see here. I'm just checking my chat here. I'll never forget the request at MBAS 2018. Yeah, Joseph, I remember those very well. I got a blog post about them. Can I compare the Kindle edition to my digital download? Well, sure. The Kindle edition will work on a Kindle, and the digital download, a PDF format, will actually also work on a Kindle. Besides that, they're the same book, so they shouldn't be an issue there at all. Let me see here. What else do we have here? Okay, let me move on to the next question that I've got pre-presented. This is an easy one. How do you get such great screen grabs of Excel and Power Query for your book? I use Snagit by TechSmith, and I focus very much on getting every screenshot cropped to be pixel perfect because I am very particular that way. There are screen grabs in the book, several that are edited in order to try and get the columns a little bit narrower and whatnot. So, I mean, I got some mean skills in Snagit manipulation there, but Snagit is a fantastic program for that. Is there enough new content in the book compared to the first book to warrant purchasing it? All right, I get this question a lot, so I actually thought that I would prepare a slide on this one. So basically, here's what we're going to do. Whoop, that's not the one slide that I actually wanted. So let me go over to, no, that's not the slide I actually wanted. I know it's in here somewhere. Hang on a second. Here we are. I messed up my links. So how different are these two books? So this is a difficult question to answer in some respects, because this is when I think I confused a lot of people when we said version 2, that people think we took version 1 and we just changed and fixed the spelling mistakes or something, and that is not at all what we did here. So if you compare these two books strictly on total page count, if we take M is for Data Monkey, it was 226 pages. We actually got rid of about 30 pages of the content in that book. This was for things like the Microsoft Exchange connector that people don't use. We got rid of chapter 2 because all the problems that we pointed out in that Power Query fixed, so you couldn't replicate it anymore. Terrible thing, but awesome. I mean, at the same time. We cut the SQL Server Analysis Services connector because we couldn't afford to run that one, and all of the material on working with Power Query for Excel 2010 and 2013, we cut out of there as well. So there's about 30 pages of content that got removed. Now, that knocks the book down, if you were to take that out, to about 186 pages, knock off about 10 for the introduction and whatnot. You're looking at about, that's about 186 pages of content. We then added about 173 new pages of content, expanded and new material. So if you compare that, the book size now is 369 pages. So just strictly on page count, it's a massively different book. If I go back and actually compare the content, Joseph, you're going to love this, man. I did this just for you. I built a pie chart. Okay. And the reason I did this is because all I'm looking at is showing a percentage of a whole here. The substantially similar content where we actually grabbed the chapter from last time and we just made modifications to it, there's about 3% of the book that actually falls into that category. Everything else was either rewritten or was complete net new content. So about 97% of the book has been completely rewritten from scratch. Everything except for about 11 pages of this material is brand spanking new. So, when you actually look at it, you go, well, okay, fine, but what did you actually put in this that's better? You know what? In the original version of the book, if I just call out one, I mean, our table on joins did left outer join. In the new book, we do all 6 joins that you can build through the user interface. We build the full anti-join that you have to do a little bit more work to get that. We do the approximate match with a way better algorithm than we did the first time. Cartesian products, fuzzy matching, a lot of things that just didn't exist the first time. I've got a huge chapter on calendar intelligence and whatnot. It's way bigger than it was. I actually ended up putting in a whole bunch of different ways to allocate values across periods. If you're an accountant, you're going to love that. If you're not, well, you probably still have use for it anyway. There's a ton of stuff, right? The book is massively different. And I think that's the big thing that I want people to recognize here is this isn't just a V2 that's a little bit of lipstick on top of the old content. It's a completely new book. So, is it worth buying? I'm going to tell you honestly, if it wasn't worth buying and upgrading, I would not have spent the time to write it because that's not what I'm all about. I'm not, I don't know if any of you played video games, but if you actually follow what's been happening from Bethesda with Skyrim, they've re-released the same product about, 15 times with a different cover on it. I'm not that guy. We actually want to make sure that you got new content that you're working with that's going to add value to you. So that's the deal with that guy there. Let me see here as I'm checking the chat here. The term data monkey might turn off some people. Yeah, it could do. I don't know, actually, to be honest with you, the term data monkey actually turns off a lot of people. It does some people, but the challenge for us was that it really wasn't searchable. That was the big thing. We loved the title. It was awesome. It was fun. It just didn't come up very well on a search engine. So. Nick, on the self-service BI bootcamp, I will tell you that the biggest thing that I get back from the self-service BI bootcamp feedback for people that are taking that through Skillwave versus the Power Query Academy and dimensional modeling and all that kind of stuff is it's really a journey about tying everything together and sort of pulling the whole story together. Honestly, I recommend people generally jump into that first, but I've got a lot of feedback, especially in this last semester, from people who said that they really appreciate just that it actually completes that entire journey and shows how all the pieces fit together. So hopefully that helps there. So Donald says that he's got the book, he just needs to read it. Yeah, I can't help you with that part, man. That one's all on you. Yeah, I mean, we don't learn from osmosis, right? I guess so. Let me see. If I had to show someone, if I had a few minutes to show my elevator pitch for Power Query, why do you need it? What would I show them? Unpivot and combine multiple files from one folder. Those are the two things that are always my go-tos. They have the biggest impact on people, depending on who the audience is. So I might show some join types to people as well, because that's actually also pretty fun as well when we're working on things. So. Julius answered a question. Julius uses Power BI, Power Query, and Excel to build business member-friendly tools. Users find this awesome once they know it, but they didn't know they needed it. How do you go about networking, marketing yourself in this space when it's a need that clients have but don't realize it? I'm still trying to figure that out, honestly. That's a really tough question to answer. If you ever figure out what the silver bullet is, please tell me, because that would make my life a lot easier. It frustrates me greatly that I feel that I build great content and still have to try and figure out how to sell it. So it's a tough one. But honestly, I mean, what are the big things that I do? I mean, I got a book, I got a blog, I got a lot of different avenues that I can go and talk. But still, I find that in a lot of cases, it almost needs a one-to-one conversation with the business decision maker in the organization. And unfortunately, there's only so much time you got to do those kind of things. So it's a challenging one. So I got the question in the chat, and I know this one also came in through one of the forums about, can I compare Power BI, Tableau, Google Data Studio? So I'm actually gonna say no on this, and I'm gonna do that for two reasons. Number one, I find that that's a technical problem. Number two is I don't use Tableau and I don't use Google Studio, so I'm not an authority on those. I'm a Power Query guy. I'm a DAX guy. So those are the fields that I actually know about. Outside of that, you'll need to find somebody that's versed in those products, because it wouldn't be fair of me to actually make comparisons there. I'm not speaking from an educated point of view. Let me see here. Roger says, I know in my heart of hearts that you make mistakes like the rest of Homo sapiens. Whatever gave you that impression? Huh. Actually, it's a funny story. Years ago, I had, when my daughter was in school, she came to me and she said, Dad, I made a mistake. Do you have an eraser? And I looked her straight in the eye and said, nope, I don't make mistakes. And she kind of looked at me and I'm like, all right, fine, I'll go find one. Yeah, of course I make mistakes. Big question. Did you ever have an aha moment when you realized you were doing some procedure the hard way? Who hasn't? Right? I mean, if you haven't realized that you did something the hard way and there's an easier way, then honestly, you haven't learned enough about this stuff. I remember one specific example that I had where we were actually working with when Miguel and I were running our original version of our Power Query workshop, which eventually became Skillwave's Power Query Academy. And it was all live, and we asked people to submit us examples. And somebody sent me this really horrible, ugly text file and said, how do I clean this up? And I sat down, and I am not kidding you, I spent about 4 hours working on this file to try and clean it up. And finally, I walked away from it. And I said, this drive me crazy. And I came back to it after about an hour, and I looked at it again through different eyes, and I went, oh, you know what? There's 2 reports nested into the same thing here. Let me go after one of them first. And I had the entire thing done in 10 minutes with both different data sets, strip them apart, and put them back together. Do I make mistakes? Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where some of my best material actually comes from. The big thing is to always try and keep poking things to find a better way to do things, right? And that's a lot easier to do if you have the flexibility to be able to do it. Obviously, I mean, when you got your boss breathing down your neck, you don't always get that. But it's one of the things I try and convince people when they're first working with Power Query is that oftentimes what we do is we actually manage to build something that we can automate next time around. And when you save 4 hours of work, you go back and you tell your boss that you saved 2 hours, because then your boss will find you 3 more hours of work to do. And you've still got 1 hour of time saving there that you can invest in trying to automate other things. And that's the piece that you hold on to yourself so you can keep on trying to poke and learn about different things. I always advise when I'm talking to accountants that they should actually save up about 8 hours of those things and then go take an ethics course to find out if that's ethical to actually do that. But the reality is, I mean, you do need to try and hold on to some time to try and keep reinventing yourself. Otherwise, you end up doing the same thing and you don't end up learning from mistakes, and that's just not a fun thing to do. So, let me see here. I got a couple of questions coming in. Which of my courses do I recommend for somebody just getting into business intelligence? Honestly, if you are just getting into the business intelligence field, providing that you've worked with pivot tables in Excel, I would recommend, if you want to get a good journey where you can actually go through and touch on everything, check out the Self-Service BI Bootcamp at Skillwave. It's expensive, but it comes with a heck of a lot of content, as well as it comes with 2-hour Ask Me Anything sessions once a month for an entire year. So you actually get to throw me your examples to help out with and figure things out. If that is too deep, there are other courses that are on there. I am a big believer that Power Query is all about data preparation, getting it into a good format to get your data sort of set up and ready to go. Dimensional modeling is very important for being able to set up and get the model structure correct so that things become easy. Then DAX comes after that. So the 2 places that I would sort of hit on is Power Query and dimensional modeling are really a tie. It kind of depends on what direction you're going to go. If you're not going to get into working with Power Pivot, then I'd put you in Power Query first. If you are going to get into working with Power Pivot, I would put you in dimensional modeling first. With Power Query, you then actually really start to understand the importance. But as I say, the Self-Service BI Bootcamp touches on all of that to give you good Power Query, good dimensional modeling, good DAX to get through, plus the report sharing, whatnot, and then you know what areas you need to go deeper into afterwards. Nick's we're in the process of rewriting a lot of his queries from 2018 due to new knowledge and techniques. That's fantastic. Love hearing that, and hopefully it'll make things more efficient for you as you go along. Philip's asking, how soon in an Excel student's career of learning topics do you introduce Power Query? I think it replaces VBA macros and is follow-up to format as table and summarizes pivot table. Yeah. Okay. So I would say VBA today comes at the very end of the learning journey. That is something that I don't encourage people to learn that much anymore, because a lot of the time what I've discovered with people who come to VBA is they're trying to clean up and reshape their data so that they can actually use it. And Power Query is better for that. Now, if you want to be able to automate it so that you can, do a lot of other things like kick out the report, so it automatically goes to a PDF that gets emailed to somebody. That's where VBA comes in, right? So there's that extra secret sauce that goes at the end. But I certainly wouldn't start people into learning VBA today unless they've already got some very, very good Excel skills. As far as Power Query goes, Power Query I like to introduce relatively early to people. The thing that I usually find with pivot tables is people sort of get comfortable with pivot tables relatively quickly once they apply themselves to them. It's a funny technology, pivot tables, actually, because people are really intimidated by it. I mean, it really is a clicky, draggy, droppy thing. But the big problem with a pivot table is that the data's got to be in the right format first, that first normal form, to be pivoted. And that's where Power Query comes in. So it's been fine usually when I'm actually teaching a brand new crop of students who have never touched Excel before. We go through and we teach them some different formulas. We teach them how to actually format things as table. That gets them the rudimentary skills they need. Then we teach them how to make a pivot table. And then we go back and we teach them how to use Power Query. And then we say, go out and work in the real world for a while. And once you've actually figured out what the limitations of the pivot table are, then you come back and look at the business intelligence world to try and play around there. So hopefully that makes some sense there. I see, holy cow, I got to talk faster. The comments are starting to scroll up this chain real quick here. My life changed to Bill Jelen introduced me to Emmett to Data Monkey. Awesome, fantastic, love that. You spent 4 days going to cover with no interruptions from work. I don't know how you get 4 days with no interruptions at work. People are going to be jealous of that, I think. Only thing I use VBA for is splitting out reports or automating certain flows of import or report refreshes. Yep, pretty much the same thing today. I mean, I build programs in it too. So yeah, I would say that it has its uses, obviously, but not as much as it is. Is there anything coming down the pipe to replace VBA and macros? So the Office team is working on Office scripting, which is intended to be completely cross-platform and whatnot. You can start seeing some of that in Excel Online today. So there are new languages. There's JavaScript-based language. How soon it will replace VBA and macros, I don't know. I certainly have not started migrating my tool sets to it yet because there is no Power Query or Power Pivot capabilities yet in Online. So for me, it's kind of a killer. But that is the future of it. So. Joseph, thanks for the comment on the boot camp. Appreciated that. That is super helpful. More comments agreeing on VBAs, using VBA for importing Outlook data. Yeah, and Scott, I'm assuming that the reason that you're not using Power Query for that is because it's a shared mailbox and you can't get to it. That's my guess. That would be a feature request that needs to go into the Power Query team. I'm sure they've heard it before, but I'll be honest, the Power Query connector is not heavily, the Outlook connector is not heavily used. So, that's why it hasn't seen a ton of love there. So, let me go back to the list of some of the pre-submitted questions. Where do I get my data samples? So I joke a lot that all of my data samples that I use are near real world data samples. If there is a data source that I try to avoid at all costs, it is AdventureWorks. And it's not because AdventureWorks is a bad database, it's because everybody uses AdventureWorks, and I like to have stuff that actually emulates real world problems. So a lot of it comes from my experience and history working, on the ground as an accountant. One of the things that I discovered is that a lot of the data that I got fed was, if I can say it bluntly, absolute crap. It had all kinds of garbage in it and things that you needed to clean up. I mean, it's real world. So those are the kind of things that I really like to go and actually and get is real world dirty data, and then go and actually change it a little bit to protect the guilty and the innocent, and then those are the kind of things that we use. So even when I'm in my boot camps or in the different courses, when we get people that submit us questions through our forums, if they submit a data sample, I'll actually look at it, I'll change all of the data in it, but keep the same footprints and formats, and that way we can actually generate the recipes and patterns, because one of the things that I know for sure is that I hear over and over again, yeah, Ken, I've got a data sample that you've never seen this kind of format before. And I can't tell you the last time that was actually data problems are the same the world over. I've seen the pattern before, most likely. It's very unusual that I haven't now. Having said that, when I discover a new one, it's like, oh, awesome, this is exciting because now I get to do something new and fun. So, does the absence of Power Query and Power Pivot from Excel for Mac make Excel for Mac an outlier for most advanced Excel users? That depends if you install VMware or Parallels on it and can actually run real Excel on your Mac. If not, people like their Mac hardware, so that is one way of getting around it. For reference, Power Query is being worked on and is coming to Mac. I have no idea what's happening in the Power Pivot space there. How do I communicate to others in my company to start using Power Query? That is the age-old question. It really is, and it's not just you. I mean, there's a lot of people that are trying to deal with this. I think one of the things that's important is, I mean, your management needs to be educated as to look what I can do with this, but they also have to care, and that's a tough one, right? I mean, oftentimes it's results-based. If you can actually show that you're doing something that's a lot easier and faster, then at that point, you know, people tend to buy into it. Donald says Mac Excel isn't real Excel. I am not getting involved in that conversation at all. Oh boy, there's lots of you guys that are not Mac people. How about that? Interesting. All right. I have a Mac. It's awesome. It's holding down some books on my bookshelf. Let me see here. I do small projects for coworker, often just how easy it was. Hey, cool. There you go. So Benjamin's got a good solution for that one as well. So throw it off, right? It's walk the walk before anything else. So. Let me see, what's the next one? What kind of an environment do I use when I'm writing a book like this? I have 3 monitors on my desk. I'm a bit of a luxury there, I guess. One of them is in portrait mode. That is the one that I actually do the writing on. The other 2 are in landscape. That is where I have Excel on one, Word on another, and my image editing on another one. I drink lots and lots of coffee. I have an espresso machine. We joked with the first book that the reason that the cover is espresso brown is because that's what powered those pages. I drink a ton of it. And I also have Spotify locked on my playlist, which I have a heavy influence of rock music from the Canadian 90s music scene, things like the Tragically Hip 5440, Barstool Prophets, Tea Party, Northern Pikes, to name a few, as well as Shinedown also goes heavily in there. My wife does not understand how she can come downstairs and I have music nice and loud, but that allows me to actually go in and focus and concentrate, which is totally opposite for her. So it's kind of a weird thing. So I got to learn how to use Spotify before I can share a playlist, Nick. That's getting really personal there. M is for music. There you go. Are my courses CPE eligible for CPA Ontario? I believe CPA Ontario has the same CPA requirements or CPE requirements that we do in BC, which allows you to self-report. We provide a certificate of completion at the end of all of our stuff, so that should be sufficient. So I believe the answer to that is yes. Having said that, if you are a CPA, you should also know what those requirements are, so you could actually just check and validate that just to make sure. I don't want to try and tell you something that isn't there, but I am certainly happy to make sure that you get your official certificate to make sure. Will Microsoft reoffer certification for BI? No idea. I'm not in control of that stuff. I'm not really familiar with that sort of piece there as well. Let me see, what else do I have in here that was on my list of pre-done questions here? What was the hardest part of writing the book? There were 3 hard parts to writing this book. The first one was drawing a line in the sand of when we basically had to say, okay, and honestly, this is kind of one of those. I am really fortunate to have a really tight relationship with a lot of people on the Power Query team at Microsoft. I mean, so tight now that my co-author is actually going to join them, right? One of the dangers that comes with that, though, is that we get a lot of chatter and preview about what's coming up, and it is really, really easy it's really hard to draw that line to say what will make something obsolete very quickly. So is it worth waiting for versus what isn't? And it's super easy to fall on the side of not wanting to let things be obsolete. That was the first big delay thing that we had, was we were waiting for something, and that something, which was supposed to be there for 3 months, took 9 to come to the product. So that was the first part that was really hard. Once we actually finally drew the line in the sand and say, you know what, look, we can't wait for new features all the time. We just got to make that line and cut it, was finding the time required to actually do it properly. That was really tough when I was traveling a lot. And then, of course, when COVID hit and basically the revenue stream dried up overnight and we had to try and reinvent the business in a real hurry, it's really tough to find the time to go in and put, 20 weeks into writing a book when you're not getting any revenue back for it at that time, particularly when there's an additional lag to actually get the book out to publication. And then finally, the last thing that became a real challenging one was changes to the Power Query and Office in the final days that compromised the material that was actually in the book. And I don't know if anybody actually picked up on this in a blog post, but I actually submitted the draft to our publisher. And I went and sat on my patio with a beer and took a picture and posted on Facebook. And I got an email back from my publisher to say, you have just set the all-time record for obsolescence. 15 minutes after you posted your picture, Microsoft released and announced that they were going to release an updated user interface for Office 365. 15 freaking minutes. I went, oh my God. So at this point, we're going, well, now what, right? Do we hold the entire book back? What do we do? Now, fortunately, I was able to get my hands on the beta version of it, so I was actually able to reshoot all of those images and get them updated. So at least now the book is going with the new images, which is good. But it was that close. And I actually have friends that have written books that it was too late. So their books will come out in print with their user interface already obsolete. And this is the kind of stuff that we were trying really hard to avoid. The other part was that in the final days, we had something come through one of our distribution lists where somebody questioned the way that something worked, and we realized that it completely compromised one of the examples that we had on working with random numbers, because in Power Query Online, the method has completely changed, and that meant that what we were writing up in the book as a recipe for doing this would not work anymore. And you're going, holy smokes. Now, we've managed to catch that one in time and got it fixed, which is good. Having said that, I've also been in contact with Microsoft because what we're doing is to actually work around a problem with the way that the thing works. And I am hopeful that they are actually going to make that part of that chapter obsolete in the future. We will see. That's actually one of the biggest flattery points that I get, is when I actually write something and can point out that there's a problem, and Microsoft goes and fixes it so that those pages in my chapter are obsolete. That's what I love seeing, because it's really easy in version 3 to go and actually cut a paragraph out. It's when you have to keep on adding new ones in with the page count, that's where the real challenges come in. So, all right. Outside of that, I think the last sort of big question on this whole thing is, when the heck do the physical copies come out? As I said, I still don't have mine yet. One of the things that I do know coming up here is that physical copies are coming. In the U.S., you can actually purchase now from the MrExcel.com store through his link. So if you go to MrExcel.com/products, he is actually selling the physical copy. Unfortunately, there was an issue at the printers, so that this has been delayed slightly, but not like it has been before. So we're expecting those to start shipping on September 20th. In Australia, Matt Allington has them available through Accelerator BI. So if you go to acceleratorbi.com.au, you can actually get a physical copy shipped there as well. Those to be available for fulfillment on September 20th. For everybody outside the US and Australia, including Canada, which drives me crazy because, of course, this is where I am. Right now, our messaging is around November 1st on Amazon. Interestingly enough, if you look at Amazon websites from around the world, virtually every Amazon fulfillment date is different. They are historical, they are futuristic, they are whatever. I don't know who has controlled what's going on with that one, but the control hasn't been great. So there's a variety of them, but they are to the Amazon warehouse in October and should be fulfilled November 1st. Of course, if you want to get your PDF copy and you don't have it, you can pick it up here as well. But Skillwave won't be shipping physical copies. We're not getting involved in that one. I am hopeful in the future that we will also be able to get distribution to Canada before Amazon. So watch for news on that over the next couple of weeks. The other thing that I will say is, if you are a Power Query Academy member or you have purchased the book through Skillwave, Don't jump over and purchase a physical copy from anyone quite yet. Wait about a week, because we've got some news coming for you in the future from Skillwave. So if you're already a Skillwave customer and you're looking for your physical copy, just hold tight. You'll still be able to get your September 20th date there, but there's something that we're going to be talking about next week on that side. And outside of that, where's the spec for a SaaS queue so I can make my own? Good question. I don't know anything about managing SQL Server analysis services on the back end. Why does the monkey have an eye patch? Hey, fantastic. So I got to tell you, the Data Monkey was actually drawn in 2018. Okay, it's going back a long time. One of the things that was really big and hyped around that time was the whole concept of Google Glass and sort of the Google Glass eye wear and whatever else. So when we built the cyborg monkey, he was intended to be half monkey and half machine, and it was Miguel's idea was to give him the eye patch there. And if you actually look at the cover really closely, you can see some data on there because he's scanning his data and whatnot there. So. Why does one have it on the right and one on the left? Because I actually flipped the image, trying to be clever, and didn't think that anybody was going to notice that. But obviously, you people are detail people here, so well done to catch that out. And you'll see that all the time in the Power Query recipes. I actually just flip the image back and forth in order to make it work. So. I mean, as far as the thanks, look, I mean, this is what I do. I enjoy it, and so I thank you guys all for supporting me. I very much appreciate it. This is I got one of the best jobs in the world. I mean, like I say, when it's not COVID, I get to fly around the world and talk to people about Excel. What can Power Query? What could possibly be better than that? It's the interaction from these kind of things that keeps me going, and I very much appreciate all of you. Being here and asking the questions and being part of it. And the positive feedback has been super helpful for getting through the last few months of this awful lockdown and whatnot. So fun times. Actually, for the first time in 18 months, tomorrow I will actually be hopping on a ferry and actually making a trip to Vancouver. I have not been off the island in over 18 months right now, but my daughter is going to be off the university, so we're taking her over to move her in this week. So back to some travel at the end of the day. So, all right, awesome. Well, on that note, folks, I want to thank you all for coming on this, and again, I really appreciate all the positive feedback that you all are giving here. That's huge. Thank you for coming. We are going to get this posted up onto to YouTube for others. So if anybody missed it and is looking for it, we'll get that link out and share it on social media. And outside of that, I hope to catch you guys at one of our other presentations. And remember, well, that wasn't the intention, Stanton. Just remember, folks, as I say, we do have a big sale going on at Skillwave right now. So if you're looking at picking up some of the courses there, now is a great time to do that. Awesome. Thanks very much, folks. We'll see you next time.